Taoiseach, reality is that the level of government spin on so-called economic recovery and jobs over the last 2 months has reached a scale of being truly Orwellian and bears no relationship to the reality of people's lives in this state, or indeed the people outside of it who have been driven out by economic crisis. Now, will you accept that the 400,000 people on the live register, which is unemployed and seriously underemployed, is only the beginning? That you can add another 100,000 almost from various holding schemes that really remove people into various, many spurious schemes, Jobsbridge among them, spurious and again spin. 20%, Taoiseach, found work with their host company, and 16% found work with other. You spin the figures, you don't give the real figures that were put out after the Indicon report, for example. And isn't it truly pathetic that you have to funnel young, talented people through this scam bridge, as my colleague MEP Paul Murphy calls it, for 9 months or 18 months apparently now, and they might have an offer of a job. If the job is there, why wouldn't it be given at the proper cost, beside on the a €50 a week? It's pathetic. And Taoiseach, would you accept that if you take the current live register, plus the people on the schemes, plus the 300,000 who have been forced out of our country in immigration, forced economic immigration in the last 5 years, that the real level on the live register would be 800,000, which is an indication of the real scale of the crisis at the present time? And would you accept, Taoiseach, that what you are proposing is Mickey Mouse, and that's to dignify it, in fact? To get rid of a travel tax of a few euro as a job creation measure? Are you for real? Now, Taoiseach, do you not understand what's going on in the real world of Irish capitalism? In 2007, gross fixed formation, in other words, investment, was €48 billion. In 2012, it had fallen to €17.4 billion. That's where the story begins and ends. So if there's not investment by the private sector, there's not going to be employment. And all over Europe, they're hoarding up to €2 trillion in the Eurozone alone, hoarded in banks by accumulated profits of big corporations who refuse to invest because it's not profitable enough for them. Now, against that, Taoiseach, have you studied the Nevin Research Institute figures, which shows for every 1 billion that the state would invest in job creation, which would only be 575 million net, because of what will come back to the state and taxes and all the rest of it, 16,750 jobs could be created directly and indirectly. Have you studied that figure? And isn't the implication clear there for what your policy should be? And instead of tapping around at the edges, why will you not go to the heart of the matter? And let me put this to you, and will you be please specific in your answer? Because you are so much more masterly than your predecessor Bertie Ahern at now spinning acres and acres and acres of cotton wool, figures and figures and figures that engulf us in a miasma that we can't find our way through. So answer me this very specifically. The central bank said that net domestic wealth in 2012, quarter 4, was 461 billion. You don't do a proper or any analysis of this deliberately in terms of who has the wealth in our society, but the wealth of nations, which was the most recent one, and it's even years ago, from the Bank of Ireland, estimated that 1% of the population, 1% only, held 20% of the wealth. That means 1% hold 92 billion, all of them multimillionaires. Now, Taoiseach, a tax of 1% on that would yield 583 million. And if you put an emergency tax of 5% on them, say for next year, you would get 2.9 billion euro. And they wouldn't even miss it. Cigar money, they wouldn't miss it. Now, why will you not take radical action like that and then put that money into public job creation investment programs that would deliver tens of thousands of jobs? And then the private sector as well, then, the small businesses that you speak about, will also blossom on the downstream effects of that. That's how you tackle unemployment. That's how you have economic recovery and jobs. Now, specifically, why do you not implement measures like this rather than this makey-up stuff that's going to have our people in misery for the next years, with forced unemployment, parents seeing their children go, the dole, the misery of the dole. And Taoiseach, I have to say in conclusion, it's an outrage what you were up to in yesterday's Irish Independent with your article on welfare. And your Minister for Social Welfare, Burton. This government is quickly evolving into the most right-wing government economically in the whole history of this state, blaming the unemployment on the unemployed, blaming the crisis on young people. It's frankly outrageous, and it's time that it was called as it was, which is only a few of us are doing it really, because the media, of course, are in your corner as well.
Taoiseach. Well, I was out in Blanchardstown recently, which I understand is in your constituency. And we had the privilege there of opening a new data content storage facility with investors from Ireland and from Canada. Now, the people working there, Deputy Higgins, in your constituency are real people. They go to work every day. They earn their living. They pay their taxes, including all their taxes. And you don't seem to think that that's real. In fact, you don't seem to want that kind of investment, despite the fact that the report coming out on the area of data content storage and capacity will see increases of about 15 to 17% year on year through 2017. And that means that the extra space in that facility, for instance, will be filled before too long. Not just with equipment, but with people working in your constituency. Go out to Newlands Cross. Look at the roadworks going on there. There are people working there, Deputy Higgins. That comes from investment and decisions in appropriate conditions to put up that kind of money. And the same applies on the road south, and as it will next year, please God, from Gort to Tuam to shorten travel times and provide opportunities for people to work. Do you not consider that the PPP programme, where there are 8 major schools being built at the moment with 1,000 jobs, that should be done, that they're real jobs for craftsmen, for blocklayers, for scaffolders, for welders, for electricians? Do you not think that that's a good thing to do? Because you seem to say that these are Mickey Mouse jobs, is what you said. Mickey Mouse jobs is what you said. Mickey Mouse. He seems to be around these corridors quite a lot these days. You're not the only body who has caught him in a trap, if you like. Now, I don't accept your acceptance of MEP Murphy's description of the Jobbridge scheme as being Scambridge. Deputy Murphy, MEP Murphy is yet to be elected by the people. You're elected, and you're entitled to speak in here. And the point is that when you go and speak to the young graduates who have now got jobs in your constituency, they'll give you a very different version of the opportunity to work through their qualification with an employer and the opportunity to have a permanent job or to start their own business. And remember that there are 25,000 people a year coming into this country, and they emigrate from other countries to Ireland here, and they contribute to our economy, and they contribute to our welfare, and they contribute to our work ethic generally. But you don't seem to recognise that either, Deputy Higgins. So the fact of the matter is that you are now confusing the bank crisis and the bank collapse, where the wealth of this country was eroded since the time you speak of. But you're confusing that with the investment opportunities in Ireland and the export potential from Ireland. In the last 10 years, last year was the best year for the IDA, and last year and this year was the best year for Enterprise Ireland, which, as you know, assists companies from this country who export abroad. And they're stocked, both investors in here and companies expanding, by workers who measure up in terms of productivity and change and direction. And you don't seem to recognise that either. It seems to me as if in your warped philosophy you don't want anybody working at all. And I mean, coming from your native county, where they've never had a better year in the hospitality sector and they want more of it, you would think that that kind of investment would be recognised by Deputy Joe Higgins as being an advantage for the country, for our economy and for our people, because they're real jobs. They're real jobs. You don't seem to want that at all. So I reject completely your assertion of Mickey Mouse opportunities. These are opportunities for young people to get a start on the ladder. And if you, like the promoters of the party in front of you last week, want them to languish on the dole queues with no opportunity, no response, no incentive, well, that's not the space that I'm in, and that's not the space that the government are in. And we're working very closely with the Minister for Social Protection in changing the structures so that people can have opportunities to work. I was up in Dundalk and down in Sligo in the intro offices, group interviews, individual interviews. What would you like to do? What is your talent? What is your skill? Do you want to become a technician or a welder? Do you want to become a blocklayer? Do you want to become whatever your wish is? That there are opportunities created for young people. They've all got a talent. They've all got a flair. They may not all be PhDs or master's degree in scientific analysis, but they have a part to play, and we want to give them that opportunity. And that's where the investment for government will continue to be. I don't accept your assertions at all.